Hello. I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Hello, everybody. This is Cassandra Dowlett, your Badass Bookworm. And I have with me today Charles Kruger, an old friend and poet. Yeah, I feel like I've known you forever. It's been a long time.
About a decade.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You're always very active in the community. And you've been doing a really cool thing in recent weeks with the art from our bunkers. Is that what it's called? What's it called?
Art from our bunkers. I
Yeah.
just wanted a place for people to be able to put up poetry, performance, stuff that we were creating on our own within the COVID crisis. And a lot of people have been doing that. There's a lot of sites, but I wanted one for my community.
There is, but yours seems to have, you have a lot of people involved. I mean, people are into it.
A lot of people have gotten involved, and a lot of people I grab off the internet if they're on my friends list and
Yeah.
become involved. I've tried to persuade people to post directly, but they hesitate.
They do. Yeah.
I catch them. I catch them online and post them up.
Nice. I like your office and I love your hair and beard. You look very angelic there. You
Cool.
have nice art too. Um, what are you working on? Are you writing during this time or is it too stressful?
It's not too stressful. I am writing.
Mhm.
I've been working particularly on a totally different non-poetic project, which is a book on my shamanic practice.
Oh, nice.
That's really quite interesting.
Tell me about it.
Talk about it. Well, I have a shamanic practice,
I didn't know that. See?
which is something I got involved with almost 15 years ago. When I saw an advertisement. Some guy had a piece of land up in Santa Cruz, and he was going to do a shamanic workshop, a whole day workshop, about 6 hours for $45. And I'd seen that sort of thing. I thought, that's a very good price. I think I'll sign up for that. So I did. And I showed up, and I was his only student.
Oh, wow.
Nobody else showed up. And I figured he'd give me back my $45 and say, I'm terribly sorry. He didn't. He worked with me one-on-one for about 10 hours,
Wow.
$45. And this
Amazing.
is great for me, he said, because I'm going to develop my teaching and find out how this workshop works. And you can give me direct feedback as we go.
Mm-hmm.
And he was an interesting guy. He was a professional psychologist, counseling psychologist, very capable, very well credentialed. He had done work as a hypnotherapist. He had worked with Michael Harder at the Foundation for Shamanic Studies in Mill Valley. He'd been interested in that. But his real experience had been as a grief counselor for Alutiiq communities in Alaska. And when an elder would die in these small communities, sometimes only 400 or 500 people, the government would put him on a puddle jumping plane, and he'd take that puddle jumper and go from town to town as a psychologist to help people that needed that kind of work to process the death. And as he described it, he learned a lot more from these individuals that he met who were processing the deaths of tribal elders, really, than they could have possibly learned from him, he felt. And that was really his draw into shamanic work. And I found it very exciting. He taught me how to do shamanic journeying and how to work with a drum. And I took it very seriously for a few years and then drifted away from it. And then about a year ago, I had a major illness. I had a burst appendix.
Oh,
Appendicitis, had a burst appendix, and I was in the hospital for 12 days. It took 4 surgeries. I came out with my body rearranged. The shape of my whole middle is scarred and different.
wow.
During that time, I felt this enormous call back to the shamanic work.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very, very exciting for me. And all kinds of interesting synchronicities happened in connection with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like a guy wandered in who said that he was the hospital chaplain and would I like him to pray with me? Yeah. No, I didn't want some stranger to do it. I thought he'd be laying on the hands and very evangelical kind of stuff. I said, no, I don't think so. He said, well, let's just chat. I said, okay, well, tell me about yourself. It turned out he was at the Yale School of Theology, a graduate student. And he knew all kinds of things about shamanism and spiritual work. And that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a guy that came in. It was his very first day as being trained as a nurse. I was his first patient, and he was called in to give me a body bath. And he was so moved at doing this, that person-to-person contact, that he was crying
Oh,
as he did this. Not in a negative way,
yeah.
but he was so moved. He was,
Connection. Yeah.
and he was, giving me this bath, and he was crying, and his name was Christopher.
Huh.
And I thought, well, that's interesting. Because all of these like spiritual synchronicities
Mm-hmm.
just struck me very hard.
Mm-hmm.
After that, I said, I've got to write about this. And I began writing sort of a memoir, practical book about the shamanic practice. And it's slowly developing into something interesting. I've never written much prose before, so it's a new explanation. That's a long explanation.
No, that's great. I mean, it's fascinating. I think, well, for us poets, it requires a lot of thinking and sitting still to dive into prose. And it sounds like you have a really good specific topic to work around with lots of stories attached.
Well, what I left out is the most dramatic thing that came after that event. And that is I did a shamanic journey after I came out of the hospital. And the direction I got on the shamanic journey was that I was going to have to do deep meditation on death. And a month after that, my partner was diagnosed with lung cancer. And we got married.
Oh, sorry.
In fact, today would have been our first wedding anniversary.
Hmm.
And, he died.
Yeah, I know.
And in connection with that, some extraordinary shamanic experiences happened. But the most dramatic one was that the night he died, well, I had asked about shamanic work. I'd asked spiritual guides, what should I do to have this experience? They said, well, in Buddhism, you would sit and meditate on a corpse. And the night that Jim died, the people from the cremation facility didn't show up for 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat alone with the corpse. I talked with the corpse and I played with the corpse. And, I ran my hands over the corpse and I washed the corpse.
How did that feel to you?
Extraordinary. It changed my life. It changed everything.
Really?
It was like a deep.
I was with my father when he passed away. And so I was in the room. I actually felt him leave, I feel strongly. And then I felt really no connection to his body once I felt him leave. But I find it interesting how that process is super important to other people and their grieving and their connection. But to me, I felt like this body has nothing to do with his spirit. His spirit, I felt that go. But that was my experience. So I find that interesting.
I felt that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that I was in a state of shock.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd written about it. But the piece that I wrote about it was so long that I haven't been able to read it at open mics and nobody's been interested in publishing it so far. There was a woman who was doing shamanic work, and I sent it to her, and we were going to do some work together. And after she saw what I'd written, she sent back saying, I got a message from my guide. I mustn't work with you. She wanted nothing to do with that.
That's weird.
Fluffy light stuff sufficiently for her. She was very new age. In a way that I'm not. And yeah, just too deep.
Wow. Well, I wonder if you would like to read an excerpt today, or is there anything you want to read and share with us?
I would love to read that.
Yeah? I don't know how long you're talking when you say long, so maybe.
Well, maybe 8 minutes.
Perfect.
The whole thing.
Perfect.
I have to find it.
That's fine.
Can you see me now? Because I can't see me.
Oh, I can see you. Yes, very well.
Because I'm looking at stuff on the screen, so I feel like I'm invisible.
No, you're not.
But
You're
what
not.
I am doing as we talk is signing into Submittable to call up when I submitted this piece.
Right. Oh, goodness.
I know that version is timed.
My coworker has something to say.
Hi there. Ah!
Oh.
Yeah, that probably confused the poor dear.
So the podcast will be audio, like a normal podcast, but we'll have this video too, and I'll probably post it on YouTube if I can get it to do it. And then we'll have both. But we'll definitely be audio, so it doesn't matter if we lose your picture. We'll be a regular podcast.
Okay. I'm trying to, where is the submission activity? Messages, content. Okay, there's 2 pieces here. The first one is quite a brief poem. It's a fairly recent poem, and it's called A Brief Moment on Grief. Wait, the spiral will turn because it must. I stare before sleep at the table beneath which I have left the urn with your ashes, unable to turn it off, the grief. It is dark before sleep. Wait, the spiral will turn because it must. Ashes to ashes. In the morning rises the sun. I sit at my desk, watch the cypress trees emerge from the dark. The sky lightens. I watch them sway. It is too cold for the hummingbirds. They left last season, to be remembered in December at the death of the year. Wait, the spiral will turn because it must. Dust to dust. Day into night, into day I pass. From the season of your passing into a future which I cannot help but embrace. But wait, the spiral will turn because it must. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
That's lovely. And probably hard to read.
No, it's not hard to read.
Okay.
I mean, it's emotional, but I like emotion.
Yeah, me too.
No, emotion is good. That's never difficult for me. It's sad.
Yeah.
It's terribly sad.
Yeah, it is sad. What a sad situation. I am so sorry for your loss. I sort of watched it from a distance, that you found love and a partner, and I was so happy for you. And so then when you announced that he was ill, I was just, it's terrible.
It was discouraging.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find. Now, this other piece is a little bit, well, more than a little bit longer. This is the one that would be maybe 6 minutes.
Okay.
Would you like to hear it?
Sure.
Okay. So this is called Good Night, Sweet Jim. And my preface says, my husband, James Lawrence Otto, passed away on June 29th, 2019 at 10:57 p.m. Pacific Time at 115 Michael Court in Vallejo, California, 1 month after his 68th birthday. He's going, the nurse said quietly. Jim shuddered. The nurse took his hand. He's gone. Jim startled and looked at us, struggled for more breath. The nurse stepped back. That happens, she said. This may take a while. Then Jim jerked a bit in my arms, and I heard the death rattle. This time, I was the one to say, he's gone. There was a second rattle. Then he turned his head slightly, and his eyes froze. I saw they were wide open but blind. The nurse took his pulse and listened to his chest through a stethoscope before pronouncing him dead. He was perfectly still. We closed his eyes, but one kept springing open, staring at me as if through a monocle. I learned that the jaw really does drop open and stay that way. I pushed it closed. I wriggled it and pretended Jim was talking. Bra-ha-ha. I told him he looked and sounded like Marley's ghost. Do other people get goofy like this? I asked the nurse. Sometimes, she said. If you like, we could tie the jaw up with some cloth. People do that. Yes, I've seen it in the movies, I said. Don't worry, she said. The mortician will make him look very nice. He'll be cremated, I told her. I let the jaw be. The nurse left. Now the staff came in to clean the body and change his clothes. They were very efficient. I said I wanted to wash Jim, or at least help. One of the two, a quiet, clumsy, tall, strong guy, who always seemed confused and whom I secretly thought of as Frankenstein, almost pushed me out of the way. I had to be assertive. The two workers wore gloves, but I remained barehanded. I used my body language to make sure Frankenstein stepped aside and we wiped down the corpse. I wiped his face and kissed his cheek. I ran my hands and the washcloth over his chest, down over his belly button, and took special care with his penis, then the legs and the feet. I noticed that the feet were cleaner than they had ever been in life for my barefoot gardener. Then I was alone with the corpse. I called Tulip, the cremation service. They had promised when we made our advance arrangements that when the call came, they would be there to take the body within half an hour. I had been assured that I would have to do nothing but make the call. That's not how it played out. Hello, this is Tulip. How may we help you? His voice was soft with a slight lisp that sounded affected. My husband died. We've made arrangements for his cremation. We'd like someone to pick him up. I see. Please accept our sincere condolences. What was your loved one's name? James Lawrence Otto. Spell that, please. I do. Is that L as in library, O as in orange, R as in rabbit, E as in evening, N as in Nancy, Z as in zebra, A as in apple, T as in Tom, O as in orange, Lorenzo? Yes, I think so. Just a moment, please. Yes, I have found your loved one in our files. Is he dead? I looked at Jim. Are you dead? I asked, loud enough for Tulip to hear. Then I paused. He doesn't answer, so I guess so. We're very sorry. Now, could I please speak to the hospice nurse who pronounced him dead? She's gone. I'm here alone. I'm here alone with the corpse. So are you going to send someone? Sir, we can't send someone for your loved one until someone in authority confirms his death. I'm looking at him. His jaw's open. His eyes are stuck open. He's not moving. He's dead, I promise you. Sir, we need to speak to someone in authority. Now listen, when I spoke with your representative 2 weeks ago, I was told that I had completed all the necessary paperwork successfully. All I'd have to do is make the phone call, provide an address, and someone would immediately come to pick up the corpse. Are you telling me this is incorrect? Tulip's promise of an easy time was a lie? Oh, no, sir. I just need to speak to the hospice nurse. There's no hospice nurse here. I bit my lip to refrain from adding you bubbling twat, a la Monty Python. I don't see what I can do, said Tulip. I'll tell you what you can do, Tulip. You can get a supervisor on the phone now. There's no supervisor, sir. I'm in charge here. What? I can have a supervisor call you back, sir. When? I don't know, sir. Tonight, I hope? Yes, sir. How soon? I wondered. Within 3 hours, sir. 3 hours. Alone, with dead Jim. I turned out the harsh overhead light and turned on a lamp. I considered music, but decided it would be too sad, knowing Jim couldn't hear. I pulled the blankets off of Jim's torso so I could see his entire body on the bed. The staff had dressed him in a ridiculous Hawaiian shirt that he hated, and blue jeans, which were all right. I sat next to the body and took his hand. The fingers were not yet stiff, and I could wrap them around my hand, so I did. His hand was cold, not too cold. I cupped his hand in both of mine. I reached only for his left hand, the one which he could continue moving until his death, and didn't touch the paralyzed right hand, as if I believed he could still tell the difference. To force the right hand to hold mine seemed like cheating, as he hadn't been able to do that in his last weeks of life. His jaw was still open, and I tried to close it, stroking his face for a moment. It was stiff now and wouldn't be moved. I sighed and stroked his hair. I love you. I stroked his hand and kissed it. I giggled as I remembered one of our favorite songs by Tom Lear. Then I swung his arm as I looked right into his face and sang it for him. I hold your hand in mine, dear. I press it to my lips. I take a healthy bite from your dainty fingertips. My joy would be complete, dear, if you were only here. But still I keep your hand as a precious souvenir. I sighed and laid his hand back down. Then I took his arms and crossed them on his chest in the traditional manner. I pulled the sheet all the way up over his head, then down, then continued up and down, playing peekaboo. I climbed on the bed and hugged him for a while.
You done?
I'm done.
That was lovely. Thank you. What would you say to people that are grieving about your what this last year has been like for you?
Exactly like COVID.
Mm-hmm.
It's all similar process. It's a state of shock.
Mm-hmm.
Before Jim died was more like the COVID situation. The world stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Jim was sick, he was going to die, and the world stopped.
Right.
That was it. It was stopped.
Yep.
And it remained stopped until he died, and then it was in shock. And what I can say is that grief,
mm-hmm.
if too, I suppose, whatever that is, but grief is incredibly unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
It surprises. It creeps up from nowhere. It disappears. You feel good. You feel bad. There are days of complete irrationality.
Mm-hmm.
the COVID situation is almost a relief because now the whole world is as crazy as I've been.
Oh, that's exactly how I feel. My partner's incarcerated, and it is that insanity of fighting with time and being unable to accept this reality, and it is grieving in a different sense. Um, so I totally get that, and I kind of feel the same way. The things that people are saying about their experience through this is just like my normal. And also, I am an essential worker, so I'm working through this. So my day to day is not that much different.
Are you confronting COVID cases?
Thankfully, not. I have my main client, and she just tested negative. So I was pretty worried. I'm a little less worried now, but it's very nerve-wracking to go into homes of people who are severely compromised, their health, and
Yeah.
be afraid of your own germs. I'm a pretty germophobic person in general, just from a nursing background.
Guessing in these circumstances, you'd be more afraid of infecting them.
I'm very much am, because most of the COPD and diseases like that would really, there's no hope if they were to contract it. So yeah, that part is very nerve-wracking for me, but the day-to-day isn't really that much different for me. So I totally get what you mean. And I think that's why I think your words about grieving are going to be very valuable to people now who are going through tough times with sick and hopefully not dying, loved ones, but we still don't know, worse to come.
I'm a writer, and I don't lose that identity just because Jim died. I process by writing about it.
Right.
That's what I do.
Me too.
I take pleasure in that. I'll always take pleasure in that, Jim or no Jim.
Yeah.
That's who I am. I take pleasure in it the way I take pleasure in a good meal.
Yeah.
It's just, it's what I do. It's what satisfies me and makes me me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Anything else that you're working on? You're working on this memoir, and that's a huge project. Have you been writing poetry as well?
Memoir. Not a lot of poetry. That's sort of nothing much has happened with the poetry. I was looking. I knew we were going to be doing this, and I pulled out some older poems. And maybe I'll read some of those. Some of these have never been read, or one of them anyway. Some of these have never been read at all. And this is one that I've never read, and it's about my mother's death. This is that's how this is going. We're talking about death and stuff.
Death and stuff.
So it's called On My Mother's Last Decline. Corono, Kruger, 1922-2013.
Wow, 1922. Wow.
Always the best storyteller, except, of course, for your own mother. You kept burning the light of dental history and your parents' months in vaudeville, Grandpa's contest-winning turns on the cornet, the time you sang Violets, who'll buy my violets on stage as the little blind girl in Orphans of the Storm. For years in the classroom, you brought to life Juliet and Gertrude and Lady Macbeth and Eliza Doolittle, not to mention wee Barney Baker. Our dinner table was your talk show interview, always the celebrity at the center, serving food and anecdotes. There was a time I learned late when suicide was on the plate and life turned grim. No longer wife, you watched him walk away to leave you in the dark. Teacher, always, you survived, embraced old age, and learned to thrive till 91. And still alive, the stories sank into the night. And then the flow of language froze, then thawed, like breaking ice in a land of nod. You said you had forgotten God and asked what happened. Where is my heart? Your life became a question mark. drawn in melting snow by a flowing creek, its movement slow. It gurgled yes, it gurgled no, it gurgled, now it's time to go.
Mhm. Lovely. Thank you. Um, well, how have you applied the shamanic learning that you did to other people? Have you worked with other people to help them?
Not yet so much.
Okay.
Poetry is shamanic work. And
Uh-huh.
I make a painting that's shamanic work.
Okay. Are these your paintings?
Um, okay, I'll show you. This one is my painting. This is definitely a shamanic painting.
Oh, I like that.
And it's called Spirit Bear Mandala.
Okay.
And this painting is a very shamanic painting.
Mm-hmm.
Tim had a stroke before he died of lung cancer. This is called After the Stroke.
Whoa. Okay.
And this one is the one that sits over my desk. And you know, I'm a literary type painter because the name of it is Through Caverns Measureless.
I like that.
It's sort of a figure on a boat, and the boat is sort of a skull.
Wow. I
And
like it. It's dark.
so, yeah, it's dark. So those are kind of shamanic paintings,
Uh-huh.
but all of them are.
Yeah.
I have many more.
Well, thanks for sharing because I've never seen your paintings before.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll send you a link. I do have a website online.
You do? We'll tell the people that are listening what it is.
It is Zibit, ZHIBIT.org/Charles Kruger.
Excellent, because those that are listening are not going to be able to see your tour, so they can go to the website and see the work. Well, I look forward to seeing you in the real world when
Soon,
all done. Yeah, absolutely.
maybe in the fall.
Yeah, in the fall.
It's a mystery how that's going to be managed.
I know. I hope to be getting back to hosting readings at the Legionnaire. And
Yeah.
I really want to focus on our friends who've had books coming out during this time that didn't
Oh
get
God,
the
yes.
celebrations that they deserve. So that's going to be my priority. But yeah, I hope to see you there. And whatever else is going on, whenever else it's going on.
Well, I was very happy to do this. It was exciting to read that piece about Jim because that's
Absolutely.
it's before.
Well, it's going to have an audience now. We can share it widely.
Oh, good.
So thanks so much for joining me. And
Yeah.
I'll talk to you soon.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stay strong. Stay healthy.